PN numbers, and each project has its own unique amendment number. If you go down the screen, you can see that some of the projects were in the previous tip, in the tip which just got approved. The other project, like this project for the Big Bend Road, was not there in the previous year. So it's a new project, and that's where you can see the cost change from the previous year. The other projects, can you please scroll down, Sarah? Yes, out of the 14 projects, we have 7 of them are new. All the projects for US 92 from Mango, McIntosh, Branch Forbes, all those are intersection improvements. And if you can see down at the total column, the total change after the tip which was approved is 59 million is the difference. And the tip has been changed from the previous number to this number, and that's the total difference being added. Next slide, please. I just wanted to bring a sample comparative report here. And if you can see here, the top part is the adopted section, which was adopted in June of 2020. And the bottom column is the amended section, and it has an amendment number, the project number, everything is the same. Just wanted to bring you as an example, and you can see that the ACSU funds have been added here, which are the advanced construction funds. So that's the that way the project changed from 1 million to 1.5. So this is just an example, and all projects, the list of the projects are in your folder. So this is what it is. And with this, I think we can move on to the next slide. If you don't have any further questions, I would please request if you could approve the roll forward amendment and forward it to the MPO board for approval. Is there any questions?
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say, I was trying to find my microphone, but any questions for Vishaka, please, from anyone? If there are no questions, can we have a motion?
This is Leland. Move approval for this item.
Mark Hudson, second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion before we vote? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed to this item? Okay, thank you. Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, committee.
Thank you for the presentation. Next, we will move to status reports. And the first status report is the heart service changes for 2021. And Nicole McCleary, I believe, is presenting that one. Nicole?
Hi, good afternoon. Nicole McCleary from HART. So I'm going to go over the proposed fiscal year 21 service modifications that HART is currently working on. Next slide, sir. So I'll give you a little bit of background. We'll look at the service modification plans, which includes service changes, impacts, and then the schedule. And we'll talk about next steps, and then I'll be available for some questions. Next slide, please. So HART's goal when we were looking at this plan was to evaluate the system holistically. We wanted to be fiscally responsible under our current budgetary constraints. We wanted to balance that focus with our desire to serve the needs of the community in the most effective and efficient manner. Next slide, please. So let's talk about our proposed changes. Next slide, please. I'm actually going to go through the changes to each route, so it might be a little technical, but the good thing is our website is going live today, so you'll be able to, everyone will be able to look at these again in more detail. Starting with the university area, Route 5 would shift to serve USF on Spectrum Boulevard between Bruce B. Downs and McKinley Drive, and we would no longer serve Fowler Avenue. The USF Bull Runner does serve USF, but it's only for students. It actually is not for any other on-campus staff. So Route 48 would also shift to serve USF on Holly Drive between UATC and 50th Street. Although Route 48 would no longer serve Fletcher Avenue, Route 6 already serves those stops on Fletcher. Next slide, please. Okay, so still looking at Route 48, we're going to have a few options to get public feedback on, and these are a response to our community requests. We plan to extend Route 48 in order to restore service north of Fletcher, and we'd be able to serve UACDC, the Senior Center Lansdowne, and the Student Residence Campus Lodge. So the first option is a one-way loop on 22nd Street in Livingston to St. Clair, and then onto Florida Avenue back to UATC. The second option provides service in both directions on 22nd Street with a one-way loop on Livingston, St. Clair Hills, and Bears. And then the third option is a one-way loop on 22nd Street in Livingston to St. Clair Hills, but then onto Nebraska and UATC. Next slide. So also in the university area, we'd like to improve the travel times going to West Shore and also help those people traveling north of Fletcher. So we're proposing that part of Route 42 actually go into Route 45. So the Route 45 would extend north on Bush Boulevard and end at UATC via 15th Street. This would create a one-way trip from UATC to West Shore. And this would also mean that these routes would no longer serve Yukon Transfer Station or Transfer Center, excuse me. So with that, it actually decreases the length of the trip. So the transfers between Route 16 would happen at North Boulevard and Waters. This would also make Route 42 a complete one-way loop from UATC to Nebraska, Bears, and then Bruce B. Downs. So this would also reduce our travel time to get from UATC to north of Fletcher. And overall, these changes would help improve reliability and on-time performance. Next slide, please. So getting from the university area to Northdale, the HeartFlex Northdale is being proposed to be removed. But we are proposing to have Route 33 cover the fixed route of Northdale Flex. So by extending Route 33 north of Fletcher to St. Joseph's Hospital via Dale Marby, we would also add a new one-way loop from Van Dyke Road to Calusa Trace Boulevard. This would create a one-seat trip from university area to Northdale without a transfer. However, the frequency of this route would go from 30 minutes to 60 minutes during the week. Next slide, please. So getting from the university area to New Tampa, Route 275 LX would be shortened to only run between UATC and the Wiregrass Park and Ride. It would no longer serve UATC downtown and the airport. We'd also rename the route to Route 22 LX. For getting between UATC and MTC, Route 1 and 400 would be the quickest alternatives. To get from MTC to the airport, we are suggesting Route 30 and then a new Route 10 that would run on Cypress Street as the best alternatives. Then to access Fowler Avenue, riders can use Route 9, 12, 45, and 400. Next slide, please. So West Tampa, For West Tampa, one of the express routes we're proposing to remove is the 60 LX. So for travel between Brandon and downtown, routes 25 LX and 360 LX are the alternatives. Then for traveling between downtown and West Shore, we are proposing a new route from Marion Transit Center to the airport, and that would be via Cypress Street. So this would be Route 10. Both Route 60 LX and 275 are frequently put on detour on Cypress because of I-275 traffic. So this new route would allow us to serve the many routes or the many residents and businesses through West Tampa and West Shore, and it has been requested from the community. Next slide, please. Okay. So also in West Tampa, Route 7 would shift to restore service to Main Street between North Boulevard and Howard Armenia. It would no longer serve all of North Boulevard. This would bring the route to serve the businesses along historic Main Street in West Tampa, and it would serve the West River development, which includes some affordable housing units. And the shift to Main Street would also allow us to meet greater demand. Next slide, please. Okay, so Ybor and downtown. Route 8 would shift to serve 4th Avenue from 21st Street to Channelside, and it wouldn't serve 7th Avenue anymore. This route is frequently put on detour onto 4th Avenue due to construction and then events that occur along 7th Avenue. Also, the streetcar provides access to 7th Avenue, or pretty close access to 7th Avenue. So we're thinking that putting Route 8 on 4th Avenue would speed up travel time. Route 8 would also shift to serve Kennedy and Jackson between Channelside Drive and Marion, and it would no longer serve Meridian Avenue. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so in the town and country area, Route 35 would be removed and fully merged into Route 30. This would create a one-seat trip from Marion Transit Center to Northwest Transfer Center. For those traveling between town and country and downtown, they currently have to transfer buses at the airport, so this would alleviate that because sometimes those connections don't always line up due to traffic delays. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. So in the Brandon area, Route 38 would be extended south of MLK Junior Boulevard to Westfield Brandon Mall using Parsons Avenue and Oakfield Drive. So one of the flex routes that we are proposing to remove is the HeartFlex Brandon. The extension of Route 38 would serve some important destinations along this area, such as the Brandon Hospital. And it also provides that connection from East Tampa to Brandon. And it would run 60 minutes. Next slide, please. Okay. In South Tampa, Route 14 would be extended south of Swan Avenue to Brinton Plaza Transfer Center, and this would create a connection to the entire HART network and to other routes in the system. So we're looking at a few options here, and the first option is to go on MacDill Avenue and Euclid Avenue, and the second option would go on Beta Bay and Dale Marbury. We'll definitely invite the public for their input on these options, and I'll discuss that a little bit more as we go further into the presentation. Okay, next slide. So this table just provides us with some of the other changes that are gonna happen that we're proposing for the fiscal year 21 service changes. We would reduce frequency from 15 to 20 minutes on our core routes, and they're listed here, 1, 6, 34, and 400. 46 Brandon Boulevard, we would reduce frequency from 30 minutes to 60 minutes. The 24 LX, we would reduce the number of trips from 5 to 3 for their peak service. And then the 20X and 75 LX would be removed. And we are proposing to remove Heartflex, South County, South Tampa, and Town and Country. Next slide, please. Okay. So we have adjustments to a number of routes. We've added service to routes 10, 14, 38, and 48, and we've reduced frequency for a number of routes. We've also removed some service, but the thing about removing the service is that when we're talking about removing the service, we kind of ensured that it was either fully replaced by an existing route, partially replaced by an existing or new route, or partially merged into existing routes. One of our goals was to keep as much coverage as possible while we were looking at this. Next slide, please. So we have increased coverage on the following routes. So we've increased coverage to Cypress Avenue, we've increased coverage on Main Street, and we've increased coverage on Route 48, which is North Florida and Bears. Here we have some routes that show the bus stops that'll be impacted. And one of the things to note is that most of the impacted stops will be served by an existing route or by a new route within a quarter mile. So we're trying not to leave people stranded. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is what our proposed service plan would look like. The green is 20-minute service. The blue is 30-minute service. The purple is 60-minute service. And then the orange is, it wasn't to be determined. It was like LX express service. So the slide needs to be updated. Yeah, so that's what it should look like and what our coverage area will look like. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is an idea of what our schedule looks like. We are currently in our public outreach phase. We have planned a public hearing for the first week in October. We will present our final proposed changes to the board in November, and if approved by the board, we hope to implement service changes by January 21. Next slide, please. So the next steps. Well, we are planning some public meetings. They're going to be virtual town hall type meetings. Our first meeting is scheduled for Monday, the 24th, August 24th. Our website is scheduled to go live sometime today, and that will actually have a survey where people can, provide comments and feedbacks on what they think of the proposed service changes. We will also be doing some public outreach at transit centers, definitely socially distanced public outreach, but definitely getting out there to those core people that are still riding the bus, our essential ridership on those essential core routes, and kind of letting them know what's going on. Our surveys will be available online and as well as hard copies. We'll definitely have those available at transit centers or by request. And as I said previously, we'll go to the HART Board of Directors in November for approval, and then changes will be in effect late January, hopefully before February, but we have that just in case. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so I know that was a lot of information for you guys to take in, but I'm definitely open to questions and comments.
All right, thank you, Nicole. Any questions for Nicole?
This is Leland. I was trying to find a way to raise my hand, but I can't figure it out right now. I apologize. Could you go back to the slide that showed the change in the frequency service?
Sure. I think it was the map, Sarah.
Where is it?
I think it was the map 19. Yeah. Is this what you were looking for, Leland?
Oh yeah, the proposed frequency. So how are these, does this kind of just shows what it's going to be? How is this different from how it is today? Is that kind of in the details of what you already went over, or can you?
Yeah, it's in some of the details, but so like the 20-minute service, currently it's 15 minutes and it would go to 20 minutes. Some of the 60-minute service was 30 minutes and now it's going to 60-minute. And then I believe some of the 20-minute service is now 30-minute.
Okay. I can't see it because it's under the word draft, but I was just curious about 15th Street between Fowler and Fletcher, what that is. I think it's Route 42 or maybe 45. Maybe it's Route 45. Yeah, 45 there. It looks like it's blue. So what is it now? Then the blue?
The blue right now it's 15 and then, oh sorry, the blue right now is 20 and it'll go to 30-minute service.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, you know, I guess if you're on that route, it really affects the whole route, you know. But I know that I would think that there's certain areas along the route where there's really much higher ridership, you know. So, like I know that 15th Street area right there between Fletcher and Fowler is like a really high ridership area, even in these times right now, all the time. So that obviously they're going to be pretty impacted by that because they use it to get to work, those folks, you know.
Right.
So I just didn't know if there was how did they prioritize, I guess, where they were having to reduce the frequency, and is there any way to do it around those higher ridership stops where they get higher priority?
So what we did was the COA analysis that we were using that was scheduled to be used for the surtax fund to expand service. We actually used it to look at how can we provide the best transit service if we do not receive any surtax dollars and we have to some way try to minimize our impacts to reducing service. So we did definitely look at ridership numbers. And one of the things that helped us to make decisions was instead of I know it sounds like we're cutting a lot of service, but instead of cutting service, we actually reduced service so that we could continue to provide service. Does that make sense?
Yeah, instead of cutting a route, you maybe reduce the frequency. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
So you still maintain the routes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of doing it.
Yeah.
I just do feel for some of these people along these routes that I know that this is going to have a pretty big impact on them. So you have these long routes, but I know there are some of the isolated areas they really depend on the frequency for quality of life.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I mean, as I said, these are proposed changes. So that's why we're going to encourage people to definitely fill out the survey, you know, go to the website and look at how this would impact you and get your responses in because, as I said, they're proposed. So, you know, what we hear from our transit riders will definitely impact the final service changes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else with questions?
Yeah, this is Chris with T-Bart. I've got a question. I was wondering, with mentioning that that route along 15th that is, utilized fairly well, as well as some of those other routes that have high ridership. I mean, if you're reducing the frequency, then you're going to have more people on those buses. And so I was wondering if any consideration was, given to, social distancing, if you're going to have people, more people packed on the bus because fewer buses are coming, more frequently. I was just wondering if consideration was given to that as well.
I mean, so our plan hasn't fully addressed social distancing as yet. We're kind of working under the assumption that we will be back to normal by then. However, because we will have less buses on the road, we will be able to provide those infill buses so that people can social distance as needed.
So when you say infill buses, so you would like plug a route if a bus is getting too crowded, you'd throw another bus out there?
Yes,
Okay.
and that's what we're currently doing right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else have any questions for Nicole?
And Mr. Williams, it's Jay Collins. I did have one question for Nicole.
Yep, go right ahead, Jay.
Thank you. Nicole, has HART looked at its numbers yet to forecast which quarter it will actually see fare revenue basically go back to pre-COVID? And are they forecasting anything off of property tax values with its millage rate or anything? Have y'all heard anything about that yet?
I would have to look and check for you, Jay. I don't want to answer you and misguide you on that. I know they're working on the proposed fiscal year 21 budget. So I would just have to follow up with you on that.
Okay. It's more of just a big worldview question of where the various authorities are in Southwest Florida and how they're forecasting themselves. It's just something we've been wondering about a little bit at the Planning Commission.
Yeah, I'll follow up with you on that.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, anyone else? Hearing none. All right, thank you, Nicole. Appreciate the presentation and the update.
You're welcome.
Moving on, our next item is Clear Guide overview, and Johnny Wong will be presenting that.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Johnny Wong, MPO staff. I hope you can hear me okay. If not, just let me know in the chat box.
Yeah, we can hear you fine, Johnny.
Okay, great. I'm here to provide an overview of a project that's been in the works for about 4 years. For 3 of the 4 years, it was just kind of like a far off dream that we had. But finally, in November of last year, we were able to launch a shared data and analytics platform. And we're hoping that this tool could be a pathway to creating a centralized repository for mobility data. We've done a lot of work on the product since we launched it last November, and we're kind of hoping that in the future this will become a one-stop shop for all mobility data sets. Next slide, please. Just to take you back and provide you with a little bit of history, our MPO participated in a pilot study back in 2016 that was sponsored by Federal Highway Administration, and the purpose of it was to determine how agencies are utilizing data business plan principles to manage their data. The purpose of the study was really to learn how agencies of various sizes are acquiring, managing, and using transportation or mobility-oriented data. The pilot was mostly focused on aspects of data governance. So we wanted to answer questions like, how are data being collected? How are changes to data sets being documented? Who's responsible for data quality? How's access being regulated, etc. Next slide. Some of the specific objectives of that study are shown on the next slide to the right. So those are some of the specific topics that we covered in that data business plan. but really the most interesting findings came out of the second, third, and last bullet points. And those bullet points relate more to data availability and what were our goals for the region in the future. Next slide, please. The questions of what data do we have and what data don't we have were addressed by a data and gap assessment that the consultants did for us. The consultants sent out surveys to all of the transportation agencies across the county, and we asked data stewards, we asked representatives from those agencies to identify what data they're collecting and using. We got a pretty good response rate, and we learned that agencies across Hillsborough County are using at least 50 unique mobility data sets. That number is pretty big, but it could even be an underestimation because, you know, that kind of assumes that we're asking the right people to identify all of the data sets that an agency is using. And we know that even across departments within the same agency, not everyone is aware of what data is kind of floating out there. So the number could be even significantly greater than that. That was a really interesting finding, but we were also interested to learn that the county is operating almost on the cutting edge. Granted, we're not like Silicon Valley or New York City or Austin, Texas or anything like that, but remember that this assessment was done back in 2016, and even then agencies in our county were preparing to collect connected vehicle data. At the time, HART was really excited to launch its automated bus on Marion. And I believe that Hillsborough was the first MPO in the nation to join the Waste Data Exchange program. So we were definitely out there, and we were thinking forward about how to collect data sets and how to use them to improve operations and planning. Another important issue that we discovered through this data and gap assessment is that the data landscape across our county is highly uneven. There are a few agencies that are very well funded and have a well-structured data program, but at the same time, there are other agencies with very limited resources, and those agencies in particular are unable to invest in computational tools to help them do analysis. They're certainly not able to invest in data sets in the same way that those other agencies are. And the group that participated in this data business plan thought it was important that data-rich agencies continue to expand their data programs, continue to build their expertise, because it's really important for them to proactively share data and insights with the less well-funded agencies. Data inequity is a real problem, and we think that one easy way to overcome this is to provide equal access to shared tools. Next slide. And so to address that problem, we think that it's important to centralize data and analytical tools so that we all have the ability to work from the same sets of data and share the same insights. The idea for the shared data portal, like I mentioned earlier, it came to fruition last November because working together, the local governments across Hillsborough deployed and launched this platform. It's only been operational for about 8 months, but we've already gotten a lot of value from it, especially regarding the stay-at-home directives. We've really been able to do a good job monitoring changes in traffic patterns, and we've also found a bunch of other uses for this platform since COVID basically dramatically changed the traffic patterns across the county. Specifically to the MPO, for the types of analysis that we're doing, this platform has saved us a ton of time. We're coming up on the midpoint evaluation period for our travel time reliability performance metrics next month. When we did that study 2 years ago, it took us at least a week just to process the data because the data set is so big. Now that we have this data platform, we're able to do the exact same analysis in a matter of minutes. I could literally do a travel time reliability analysis for the entire county in about 15 to 20 minutes. And so the time savings are pretty immense. Next slide, please. I'll spare you the language on this slide. It's kind of like sales pitch language that Iteris provided to us. But all of this slide is saying is that the platform is a web-based tool It's able to display weather and traffic data in real time across the entire network. We're also able to analyze historical data. And so now we're doing a good job of tracking trends over time, making it a very useful tool for both planning and operations. Next slide, please. Most of you are probably already aware. The tool is called ClearGuide. It's an Iteris product. We populated it with HERE data, which was provided to us for free by central office under a data agreement. The HERE data is real time. It can be binned in increments of 5, 15, or 60-minute intervals. If you're doing a long-term trend analysis, it can be binned daily, yearly, or even longer, but that requires a little bit of custom effort. Like I mentioned before, we've recently added a number of data sets. Chief among these is Waze data. So now we have Waze that is providing incident data in real time. And we've also linked the CDMS, crash data management system, that D7 maintains. So we're able to see speed, congestion like speed, delay, reliability, incidents, and crashes all in the same feed. Next slide, please. I'm not going to do a live demo because it's never quite as impressive over GoToWebinar. Most of you already have access to this tool, so you should be familiar with what it does. If not, reach out to me after this presentation and I'll get you login credentials. But when you first log into ClearGuide, this is what you see. It's a home screen with a map of Hillsborough. From this view, you can hover your mouse over any segment on the network and it'll show you current performance. It'll show you historical average over the past 30 days. Some of the metrics that are pre-populated are speed, delay, reliability. There's a number of index values that you can select if you have a specific need for those. It provides crash data. It can be filtered by mode, severity, location. Incident data can be filtered based on reliability of the report. Basically anything that Waze users can report in the app can be found on this platform. Next slide, please. We're using the tool to study a lot of things, route performance being one. One of the first use cases that we wanted to study is congestion metrics around key economic spaces. So this is kind of like not a corridor level analysis, but a point-to-point analysis. Next slide, please. It's really an exploratory study, but we wanted to take a look at what performance is along some of the most common commuter routes in Hillsborough County. We gave the project like a code title. We're calling the project the top 20 most miserable commutes. We used our demand model to identify job clusters around the county. There's 15 of them in total. We created an origin destination matrix, 15 by 15. So we took 225 popular commuter routes and we identified what performance is in the AM and PM peak. We're looking at creating some weighting factors so that we can operationalize that information and see which of those commuter routes are performing the worst. Next slide, please. Again, this is exploratory. It was just kind of our opportunity to play around with the tool and see what's possible. But we're going to be talking with the county soon about updating their comprehensive plan. And we have ideas. We have the ability to do these kind of analyses that we didn't have before. And so there are opportunities to either integrate this kind of analysis into comp plans. Perhaps we can use this to include in future regional LRTPs, our own LRTPs. There are a lot of opportunities with this kind of software. Next slide, please. We're also using it to improve planning processes by supplementing traditional LOS analysis with more appropriate metrics given the local context. So we've talked for a number of years about maybe moving away from LOS. Now with this tool, it makes it a lot easier to look at metrics like mean travel time index scores. We can do reliability forecasting. The possibilities are immense compared to what we had before. And in fact, we're meeting with the county in the next couple of weeks to discuss how we can look to integrate some of these analytics into the comp plan update. So maybe at this stage, we're not able to totally replace LOS, but we can supplement it with a lot of other different kinds of metrics. Next slide, please. We also foresee that this is going to become a really powerful public engagement tool. It's really easy to engage the public with these brightly colored maps that we can pull up at a moment's notice. It makes our analysis a lot more consistent and transparent. Because it's web-based, it would be very easy to go to a public meeting out in the community, and while we're sitting there presenting to the public about some transportation plan, we can bring up this site and show people where cars are speeding in their community. We can show them the locations where there is excessive delay and where crashes are occurring, et cetera, et cetera. And so it makes the public much more informed about the plans, and also it allows us to provide data on the spot. Whereas before, if you show up to a public meeting and someone catches you off guard with a question, you have to tell them, I don't know the answer, but I'll get back to you in a number of weeks. Now this is something that we can pull up on a moment's notice. Next slide, please. There are more examples of how we've used this for planning studies, but I wanted to talk a little bit about operations. The city of Tampa's TMC recently used this tool to help them retime some signals in downtown. Next slide, please. Many of you are probably familiar with the process for retiming signals. I know that I myself am not an expert on the topic, but the city of Tampa defined the area for evaluation. They wanted to look at roads in downtown from the river all the way to Channelside. They created these routes. So if you look at the map on the right-hand side, the gray lines are routes that someone on the city of Tampa staff drew into ClearGuide just using their mouse. They used a reporting feature, which is baked into ClearGuide, and they were able to produce before and after values for metrics like travel time and delay. The city of Tampa supplemented those metrics, or supplemented those results that they got from ClearGuide with AADT and traffic distributions, and they used all of those data sets to evaluate whether or not the retimings were successful. Next slide, please. In the future, Tampa won't have to manually supplement data, with ADT and other volume-based metrics. This coming month, we're going to be releasing another major update to ClearGuide, and volume profiles will be another data point that is baked into ClearGuide. So we'll be removing at least one step from this kind of analysis, making it much easier for everyone. After the city of Tampa retimed the signals, they found that travel time and delay increased significantly, and they were able to pull up those results fairly quickly using the ClearGuide data. Next slide, please. We've had our consultants track all of the use cases, so they stay in touch with each of the agencies on a regular basis, and they're kind of building a portfolio of how each agency is using the data set and documenting whether or not we've got successful results out of them. And so if any of your agencies have found a way to utilize this and feel that it really helped you in your planning processes or in operations, check in with them and let them know. It would serve as a great success story. As far as what we have planned for the data and analytics platform in the future, we're continuing to develop that. We meet regularly at the Smart Cities Alliance, and the roadmap seems to change every time, but it's progressing forward. I feel that the agencies that have access to this tool have gotten a lot of value in it, not least of which is to say that it has encouraged collaboration. It's made us think more innovatively about how we're going to study the network and how we can improve transportation across the county. Again, this platform hasn't been live for that long, only about 9 months, but it's definitely, in my mind at least, marked a turning point for our area. The tool itself, I believe, is facilitating collaborative opportunities. It's making us rethink how we can become more innovative. Later this month, we're going to be, again, releasing a major update. That release will have bottleneck analytics. It will have corridor level volume profiles. We're also building in a data downloader. We're adding a how-to library so that if you have a question about how to use the ClearGuide tool, you can go to that library and access it on the spot rather than emailing our consultants and experiencing that delay. We talked about building an output to digital dashboards so that we can create these analytics and then publicize relevant information on each of our websites. In this fiscal year, we have a budget to integrate some new data. So we're going to be exploring things like transit data. We're going to continue exploring the possibility of bringing in OD. I know that there are some agencies that have asked us to bring in e-scooter tracking data sets and possibly bringing in some demographic data so that we can see the impact of treatments on specific populations. And then longer term, we've already gotten a commitment from District 7 to help us make this a predictive tool. So we won't just be looking at real time and historical, we'll be able to generate future estimates of what will be going on with traffic on the network. Next slide, please. Each of your agencies has already been contacted for training opportunities. This tool is available to our partner agencies, and we want you to make good use out of it. If you have any questions about how to access or use it, feel free to reach out to me. Each time we have a major release with new updates, we offer a new training. District 7 is having a lot of its staff prepare to attend this coming training, which will probably happen late August or early September. So if you'd like to attend that, let me know as soon as you can so that we can reserve all the resources necessary so that you make the most of the training session. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you, Johnny. Any questions from the panel? Any questions from the committee?
Hey, this is Nicole. This is more of a comment. I just think this is an awesome tool. I'm looking forward to getting to play with this and really getting to work with it. And I'll definitely be signing up for the training, Johnny. Very good.
All right, that sounds good. Yeah, just if you're interested, attend and publicize it across the agency. We'd like to get as many people as we can trained so that we're all kind of operating from the same understanding of the tool. And if there's any special requests that you have, like for a special analysis relevant to heart, for example, reach out to either myself or the consultants and we can work with you on a one-on-one basis as well.
Okay, great. Will do. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anybody else?
All right, thanks everyone.
Hearing none, thank you, Johnny. Appreciate the presentation.
Sure.
Next, we have a presentation or a status report on TB Next and about the West Shore Safe Trip. And
well, thank you. This is Margaret Kibelens, and I'm with the Department of Transportation. Audio okay?
yes, sounds good. Thank you.
Excellent. Wow, it's great to be on this update following along after Nicole as well as Johnny, because we're all connected. And so I'll be able to integrate some of the information that they've shared earlier in more detail into how Safe Trip is a very comprehensive approach. As you may know, go ahead to the next slide, please, Sarah. I can do a webcam too. As you may remember, back in the fall, Governor Ron DeSantis had announced that we received $1.4 billion as funding for the reconstruction of the Tampa's West Shore interchange. Currently, the project is divided into, we're approaching it with dividing it into 5 smaller projects to make it more manageable for construction. But as you know, it's a very heavily congested area, yet we're going to build it under traffic. So next slide, please. So why Safe Trip? Safe Trip is a comprehensive plan that we're putting together for doing the transportation management plan, which is required by FHWA for the entire construction area. We'll be looking at how we can address current bottlenecks during the construction and how to make them less severe. And we are going to be a part of promoting and letting everyone know, look, this is coming, and make sure that people are prepared for it. And then hopefully through that, people will be encouraged to look for different ways to travel. They may change the time of day they travel, or they may change their modes. And it's up to us to provide the best opportunity to share as much information as possible. While we're building the interchange, we also retain a strong focus on safety as well as mobility. And mobility is all about getting through the area for whatever trip it may be. Next, please. So Safe Trip, as I mentioned, it's our transportation management plan. That's how we branded it. Safe being at the forefront of it, and then TRIP standing for our traffic management, our regional demand management, innovation, and public engagement. Next, please. We've met with our community advisory task force already, and we've pulled together a lot of key terms. These are not uncommon for any transportation group, but we've articulated into one vision of it being well-planned and innovative construction zone. Of course, we focus on safety. You've already seen some metrics related to reliability, and that's basically so people can plan their trips. If you've got a trip currently, you're going to the airport, you may expect that it's going to take 20 or 30 minutes to get there. And then once we're under construction, we want to make sure people recognize that it may take them 30 to 40 minutes, but we want them to have that as a reliable time frame for them to have to get there. We want to make sure that as we go through the process, we identify quality transportation choices. We recognize that people have choices in their modes of travel, or we also recognize that in many ways they don't. Just like, you know, as we went through our transit, we recognize, you know, there's hiccups in inconsistent sidewalk, non-continuous bike facilities. And so we're trying to identify what those are and then help increase the quality of those facilities so they are a viable choice. Strategic innovation, that is looking at smart work zones. We're looking at the work zone data exchange, which is it's very similar to what Johnny Wong was just presenting, as well as mobility as a service. That's a data exchange platform as well. And then proactive communication. Because of what's happened over the several years from going to TBX to TB Next, we have a very strong network of groups and individuals to communicate with, and we're going into this with that advantage in hand, so we can be very proactive. And it's not just one way, but it's both ways. Over the last several years, hopefully you'll see the fact that we have made a lot of adjustments in how we're approaching transportation and trying to balance it out as best as we can. Next, please. So these are our elements. That's what we refer to these as. And in the traffic management, we're really strong in that category right now. We're looking at our construction zones, recognizing how we're going to be able to make those the most efficient as possible, as well as working with contractors and understanding what their concerns are. We're also deploying instrumentation. What that means is that we have several corridors that are on state network as well as off state network, where we're making sure that we have instrumentation in place so we can monitor the success of those corridors and help make small changes depending on what the traffic patterns and demands might be on the interstate system as well as the local. Let's see what else. And we're also doing the advanced planning and predictive analytics. As Johnny had mentioned, one of the best ways to be influential in the way drivers are choosing or any travelers are choosing to make their trip is to get real-time data information out to them as soon as possible. You may not be aware that under SunGuide, in the SunGuide Center, we have a lot of, I think there's like 250, about that many sensors out there monitoring the speed and the volume of traffic that we're serving on at any given moment. And all that data is put together in SunGuide, and then it's pushed out through Florida 511. And the department is working really hard to get that data as available as possible. We're not there yet, but firms that, or companies that are running something similar to ClearGuide, we're working with them, they're at the table, and they're helping us in our discussions. Under regional demand management, it is about, well, let's just cover, let's see, our transit. Okay, so under transit service, very excited to see what Nicole was presenting, because I already wrote down and sent an email about, let's see, Route 7, Route 10, and Route 30, and how those are going through the West Shore area. And we want to be there to see what we can do. We might be able to put in a park and ride, or at a park and ride lot, it may be a matter of getting some, talking with local agencies and such in order to put in some quality bicycle parking maybe. So someone could, near one of those park and rides, they could actually ride their bike, know that their bicycle is secure, and then they can get on a bus to get into West Shore. We also are looking very strongly at how the bicycle network is established through the area, and using origin destination information in the new regional model that's coming out, or it was just out. Innovations relative to smart work zones, I'll have more detail on that. And I've already mentioned the work zone data exchange as well as mobility as a service. Public engagement, one of our smart work zone strategies is a zipper merge. And so something that's really important in that is community public education as far as how to drive through the corridor more safely. I know speed is huge on our safety. We're working hand in hand with the Hillsborough County and the MPO and trying to find ways to manage traffic and help manage speed as best we can. Next, please. So here's a map that we're using. We actually have an updated map, but this is a good indication. This is the kind of comprehensive evaluation that we're doing. So you can see that on the yellow, that's 275. TV Next is, of course, all of that. Where the Tampa's West Shore interchange is just sections 4 and 5. An AM corridor is an arterial management program, and those are corridors that we already recognize, we've already been monitoring, and we want to make sure that we have better instrumentation on those. We want to have good sensors, we want to have good cameras out there, and then also the quality of the traffic signal controllers out there are going to make a big difference. It's going to take a network in order for people to continue being able to travel throughout the whole network. And it's not a matter of just moving the cars quickly and from point A to point B. It also is managing your cycle lengths and your signal timing in order to use signal timing to manage speed, but also with the lower cycle lengths, which came out of the downtown signal retiming project that we coordinated with the city. They're using lower cycle lengths in the off-peak periods, and that's allowing all the pedestrians to be served more frequently without jaywalking. You know, they don't actually have to cross the street against a stop hand. They actually are getting served more frequently. And so that institutes better behavior by everybody. Next, please. In the realm of regional demand management, we are focusing on our origin destination. It's not just on the broader regional trips, but we have moved into a phase where we're looking at just a 3-mile trip, because within a 3-mile trip, that's a daily commute that we could meet with cyclists. It's a reasonable distance for them to choose and say, oh, I could just ride my bike to work today instead of taking my car. And that's very attractive to us supporting. Next, please. Innovation, smart work zones. So we have a couple pilot projects that we've identified already. We have one that's on Gateway, Section 2 over in Pinellas. We're already talking to contractors in order to see how well we'll be able to incorporate this into an existing construction project. How it works is that we have sensors. If you look at the work zones on the right-hand side of the graphic, you'll see the work zone identified, and then you'll see a series of squares, those orange squares. Those represent our construction barrels or drums, and those all have sensors on them. And we'll be able to see how fast people are driving and what the behavior might be. And then we use that information that's happening within the work zone, and then we project it almost instantaneously to changeable message signs upstream. And then you'll see the black signs, those sequences, those will be a library of signs that the sensors through an algorithm will be able to choose which sign is the most appropriate. And we are as close to being automated as possible when we actually we institute this. Sarah, if you don't mind, could you try that example of zipper merge click on the bottom? I forgot to connect with you early to make sure that that happened. Sometimes the sound doesn't come through.
What is a zipper merge? A lane is closed in a freeway construction zone. There are signs and arrow panels well ahead of the closure to let motorists know they need to move to an open lane. Traditionally, drivers merge as soon as it is safe to do so. It's a traditional merge when traffic volumes are low and cars are moving at highway speeds. When traffic is heavy, that one lane can back up fast. Sudden dangerous stops, significant delays, and angry motorists. When traffic backs up, there's a better way to merge. A zipper merge, also called a late merge, has motorists stay in their lanes until they reach the merge. There, each driver takes turns, alternating one lane of traffic, then the other, just like a zipper. Research has shown that this reduces backups by as much as 40%, as well as reducing serious crashes and road rage. Traffic can flow smoothly, backups can be reduced, and everyone benefits. So make your drive a zip. Do the zipper merge.
Thank you. So if you want to see something similar again, you can just go on YouTube and look for examples of zipper merge. It's been proven to be very effective across the country. And I have been giving this presentation, and I have gotten a lot of feedback about that, where people do see the benefits and how efficient it is. So that is a promotion that'll be coming through. We just have to work all the details out to make sure. We even have a call that we're setting up with the Florida Department of Transportation. I'm sorry, the Florida Highway Patrol, as far as their ability to work enforcement, not just during the zipper merge, but also for speed harmonization, because that includes incorporating variable speed limits. Next, please. So public engagement, as I had indicated previously, we do have a full library of resources in order to know how to stay engaged with the community. And we are reaching out to them in various ways. This is just a representation of what we have on Tampa Bay, FDOT Tampa Bay. We have several meetings that are going to be scheduled here shortly. We are going around to the larger agencies, such as yourself and committees, and presenting information as quickly as possible. Next, please. Knowing that we have limitations on the face-to-face outreach, we are looking for ways to communicate, just like everyone else is, with new guidelines on how to handle public meetings. but it's becoming more common and people are less resistant. So it's pretty exciting to see how the whole industry is transforming. Next, please. We also have a community task force members. So you can see that we are working with a large spectrum of agencies and organizations to bring them to the table. We've been talking with THEA, we've been talking to HART, St. Petersburg, and it's not just a matter of, it's not about FDOT just presenting to them. It's as much as a request to be a participant in achieving the end result of us being one government. And since that's what the public sees, they don't have any idea what the jurisdictional boundaries are. And so how do we make it as seamless as possible? And how do we benefit all of the travelers and make it as accessible to everyone as possible? Next, please. So lessons learned. We'd hate to be doing all this all on our own and with our head in the sand. So we've talked to I-4 District 5 with lessons learned from I-4 Ultimate. They've already given us tips on how to make sure that our contracts are set up so all the contractors participate and are a part of the Safe Trip Transportation Management Plan. They'll participate in the refinement of that as we move. We've talked to VDOT up in Virginia, talking to them about their Interstate 66 project. We've talked to Montana DOT about their project where they actually reconstructed part of I-64, and they did it in 2 phases. So they were talking about how valuable it was to have their equivalent to the road rangers on their arterials to get those routes cleared as soon as possible. We have a project or a meeting set up with the Wisconsin DOT for their zoo interchange. And then last week, as we were talking to THEA, and they were presenting information on their experiences with Gandy as they were building the Selman Expressway. We've already got a meeting scheduled with them to hear back, okay, how successful was this relative to the businesses that were being impacted by construction? So we're very interested in learning from others. Next, please. So just to give you an idea of where our schedule is, here we are, we're developing our Safe Trip strategies right now, and then we expect to have a good, strong draft the first quarter of 2021, and then have it completed in the second quarter of 2021. We already have early project development underway. We already are pushing through some of the instrumentation and coordinating on refining the capabilities of operations and management of the street, active arterial management. And we do see that once we get under construction, there will be updates that are occurring. Once the contractors are on board, they will be participating with us in handling any updates as we move forward. And we need to adjust based on technologies that come available, or there just might be some strategies that are working better than others. Next, please. So thank you. I appreciate your attention, and I will address any questions you might have.
All right, thank you, Margaret. Any questions?
You're welcome.
Any questions from the committee? Okay, hearing none, we appreciate your presentation.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Next on the agenda is there old business and new business. Is there any old business or new business? Sarah, were you going to speak to this upcoming class?
Sorry, I will send you that information.
Okay, thank you. Any other business to come before the committee today? Okay, hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
All done, everyone gone.
Yeah, I don't know how to stop the recording.
I will end the webinar for all, Sarah, and then I will be prompted to save the recording and the text version.
Okay, that's right.
I don't
All
know.
right.
I can't do my hair because it's backwards in the camera. All right, have a good day. That was a great meeting.
Thanks.
Yours are always nice and easy, no issues. I love it.
Thank you.
All
It's
right,
like
Sarah,
a
have a good one.
mama group. All right, thanks. Bye.
Bye.